Tired of screwing up, tired of going down, tired of myself, tired of this town.
Eminent Waste of Time, episode 19. I'm Doug.
And I'm Chad.
And we get to start off tonight with a listener, person.
You've been at work too long.
Yeah, I have been way too long today. A listener who agrees with me.
That's a first. And the person who agrees with you, also a first.
Robert Higbee.
Yeah.
He says, Doug, I'm with you on the Ram, and they come with airbags right off the bat.
Now, before we get too deep into this, and we'll get back to that, Doug's grumpy tonight. He's told me, I don't want to do this tonight. I'm tired. I want to go home.
And yet here I am being all congenial and happy and stuff.
He's pretending to be happy.
It's close enough. As far as you listeners know, I'm in a great mood.
He's lying.
Sometimes you just got to fake your way into it. And by the end of it, I usually feel pretty good. But it has been a day. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. So Robert Higbee's comment kind of goes back to our last, it does go back to our last podcast, episode 18, where we talked about trucks. He asked which ones we liked. And I could not tell you the amount of flack that I have heard from people saying, I drive a Chevy, it's great. And that's great. I wasn't bashing the Chevy.
Yeah, the point wasn't necessarily to say that GMs are junk. It's just I'm sorry, but they are the third in the heavy haul segment. They just are.
Yeah.
I mean, by numbers, by sales, by every measurable metric, they're behind Dodge what's now Ram actually, and Ford. If you're hauling big stuff, it's where they sit. And you know what? You might have a diesel-powered, Chevy 2500 or a GMC 3500, and it's doing awesome for you, and that's great. We're not saying it won't work for the job. It's just it wouldn't be my top choice, and that's what they asked.
What would we pick? And yeah, that's kind of what we went with. So I'm sorry if you have a Chevy. I was not trying to offend you.
Did you just insult him again? I'm sorry if you have a Chevy.
I didn't mean it that way, but
that's how I'm going to take it, though.
Okay, good enough. But no, we weren't saying Chevys can't haul it or anything else. But if we look at like what's being used out there and what I have experience with, and that's kind of what I base my decision on.
That's just where the cookie crumbles on that one. So.
Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't like to have, the Duramax and all that, but I don't haul anything real heavy either. It would be great for what we do with it. Haul a couple side-by-sides and stuff like that. It would be great. But just like I said, I haven't seen a whole lot of the older style ones. I saw some real problems with the designs. So we'll move on before I get myself in trouble by talking more again, because that's bound to happen.
Last time we went through about half of Steve Mueller's stuff, and I've broken this down into readable chunks that make sense to me now, so we can talk about the rest.
Yeah. So, and we did pronounce his name right. He told me, and then I had to think, how did we pronounce his name? Because I probably wouldn't remember. I am horrible about that.
That's one thing I've had to get really good at on the announcing side at the races.
Oh, I would butcher that.
It's tough because a lot of the names are exactly like you'd expect them to be, but there's ones that just I never would have guessed you'd pronounce it that way.
Yeah.
One of them was a racer by the name of Mark Strawn. Take a guess at how that last name is spelled.
Strawn. STRAUGN.
How about STRATCHEN?
Strachan?
That's what I thought it was. It's Strawn. But I never would have gotten that from the spelling.
No.
And most people have been pretty good about coming up to me and just saying, hey, our name is, so-and-so. And it's not a big deal when,
Hi, nice to meet you. And then you read it wrong off the list 5 minutes later.
That may have happened once or twice, too. But, most people have been really, really good about just not giving me flack. And they understand there's a million, there's 900 racers on a weekend. And you've got a million last names. But it is kind of funny because some of them are just... I've literally gone through the announcement list at the beginning when I'm dismissing rows and said something to the effect of, I'm not even going to try because I'm going to butcher your last name. I'm not even going there.
Yeah. I am horrible with names. Just like remembering people's names in general. I am really, really bad at it.
Have you ever forgotten your wife's? Hey, Brandy.
You. No, I don't think I have.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's, there's something there.
Yeah. So
anyways, I believe that's how I pronounced it last time. We're going to go with it. That's the only way I'd...
how we're pronouncing it this time.
That's how it
Sorry,
is.
Steve. I can pronounce Steve.
So I like this part. He says, with that said, I can neither confirm nor deny that Polaris has emailed all their dealers canceling this year's dealer show at the end of July, citing they have some new releases ready to go before the usual unveil.
So that he was referencing more the RS1, the single-seater. I keep wanting to call it single-seater side-by-side, but how does that make a lot of sense?
You really just have to call that one a UTV.
Yeah, it really is just a single-seat UTV. And I threw something about it on the list, but we'll kind of get into it now. That thing, like I said, I'm not in the market. It looks like a ton of fun. It looks like it's well-built and everything else. Did you see it won? I think it got first place in the Works.
It did get first place, and it looked good doing it. It was really impressive.
From what I saw, and I just saw like a 10-second video clip, it was lengths and lengths and lengths ahead of anything else. It was doing really well out there. So,
well, I don't mean to demean what it is, but it's basically a long travel big engine quad with a cage on it. I mean, it's got a lot of advantages.
It does. But it was beating fully built two buggy setups. I mean, it was beating some
but look at
high dollar things.
When we talked about last episode, we talked a little bit about the one racer in our series who was running an older Ace 900, and man, he was beating out X3s. He was beating out Maverick turbos. He was beating out everything.
The Works series seems to be a little more open though, so I would think the higher horsepower things like the X3s and the big built Razor turbos and everything else, that they would stand a better chance. But I don't know. Whatever. Maybe this was a tighter course. I didn't see the whole race or study the layout or anything.
Could be, and honestly, I don't have the numbers on horsepower to weight either.
Yeah, well.
And weight of drivers, too, because we've seen some...
We'll reference a man that we call Captain Shuffles. So...
We ran into Captain Shuffles at Ironman a couple years ago, and...
This dude has to weigh 400 pounds.
The reason we call him Shuffles is he can't get his hands around the wheel because the wheel is sitting on his belly, so he has to shuffle hand over hand while he's turning. And, I'm glad he's out there having fun, but that can't help your chances.
No, it couldn't. And I'm not saying I'm the slimmest dude ever, but I mean, I'm not... My belly's not getting in the way of the steering wheel either. I mean...
Yeah, there's a point at which it's... Yeah, that's not helping you any. But
he didn't have enough horsepower to overcome the added weight. I mean, let's be real about it.
And this was back when he
was in a Yamaha YXZ.
Yeah, he was in a YXZ, and that's when they were, new on the market. They were basically unproven. Nobody knew what they were going to do.
Yeah.
So he threw down some money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and he had a nice cage on it. He had some... Doug's hitting his microphone.
Oops.
He had some money dumped into the machine, but... Hey, you know what? He was out there. He was having fun, so good on him.
Really what it's all about. But it does affect the overall horsepower to weight. Because, honestly, even on a really built machine, I know there's exceptions where there's people that have over 200 horsepower, but when you're talking about 100 to 110, a little bit of weight makes a huge difference.
Yeah, we've all driven a machine with one person in it and then just...
Because we were arguing about, should we put the winch on? It's 40 pounds.
Yeah. Well, winch and extra battery. You add that in. Well, and we're in an 800 when we raced it. So it was, one of those things that for an 800 that's only at like 65 horse, it starts making a difference.
Really quick. And so I think that's the one thing the RS1 probably has going for it. I know it's a tamed down 1,000 cc. It's not, the full horsepower they can get out of it.
Right.
But the sucker doesn't weigh anything either. So, if you look at the race footage, like you said, it was miles ahead. And I'm not saying it's a bad machine. And if anybody took it that way from the last podcast, it's just not something I'm personally interested in. But it's interesting to see how well it's doing.
I think it's going to be a big hit with racers. Like people who are buying a purpose-built race machine.
Most people like to ride with somebody else if they're just riding, though.
Yeah. But it really does look set up well for racing.
Now, can you imagine turning the horsepower back up, throwing a turbo on that thing, and just, I mean, somebody's going to have 200 horsepower in one of those things at some point.
Oh, yeah, you know they will. That will be a hoot.
I was going to say, what is that going to be like? Actually, it kind of makes me think of Roadkill. They built the Vet Cart.
Oh, yeah.
So for those of you that haven't seen Roadkill, there is a particular episode where they took an older, was it a C4?
I believe it was a C4. It might have been a C5, but...
No, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a C4. So they took an older Corvette and basically pulled off everything. They got it down to just the bare chassis and the motor, and it basically looks like a big go-kart.
Yep.
And so the 80s Corvettes aren't exactly known for a ton of horsepower, but when it literally weighs about the same as a side-by-side when they were done,
yeah,
and you've got a V8 in it with low-end torque, even if they're not making a ton of horsepower, I think the one they had was making 240 to 250 horse. Mike Finnegan said, I don't want any more than that. It's terrifying.
Yeah. That would be fun. I mean, it's fun to drive something light and high horsepower to weight ratio, and that's fun.
Yeah. So I'd be willing to ride in one that was really, ride. I mean, you have to drive it because it's a single seater, but again, it's not
Strap
something
you to the top of the roll cage.
Again, it's not something that I'm super interested in owning myself, but Polaris, congratulations. Looking good so far. We'll be interested to follow you throughout the season and see how that goes.
Yep. No, I'm interested to see how they do. Like I said, I think they're going to be great for the guys that are wanting to build single seat race buggies. So
one thing Steve was curious about having us talk about, and one thing that we've got a lot of experience with, is paying your dues on the first season of racing. And for people who are considering it, what to expect. It may not seem like it if you live anywhere where the snow falls, but we're 5 weeks.
Not even. Yeah, we're under 5 weeks.
Depending on the season. Yeah, depending on your series, not even 5 weeks away from the start of racing season once again. Yep. So we thought we might take a little bit of time and talk about kind of maybe our experiences through the first season and what you want to watch out for.
Okay. Yeah, Steve and I, we chatted back and forth about, what to do to prep for race season, what to expect your first series or your first season of racing in a series, stuff like that, because it is completely different than just going out and riding. It is nowhere near the same. And if you think it's going to be like that, then you're not going to make the whole series. I can pretty much bet that.
Yeah. And honestly, my first thought when I saw that question was, don't make any huge drastic changes. You need to race prep. Okay, you're going to need skid plates. You're going to need A-arm guards. There's certain things you have to have. Depending on your race series that you're racing in, you might have to have a battery or complete power kill switch. You're going to want window nets and stuff like that. But as far as suspension settings or steering quickeners or that kind of stuff, until you've raced for a little while and know how the buggy's going to react, I would suggest probably just race it first and then see what you need to change. Don't anticipate a bunch of changes that you really don't have any experience with yet.
Yep. I would say, okay, let's run through some of the race prep before you even get to the season, because that's kind of the place we are in this year right now and what you need. Let's say it's your first time you're going to go out racing, you have a UTV, and, you're wanting to do it. Here's what do I need? So let's start there. Most series say at least 4-point harnesses. I'm going to say put a 5-point harness in it.
Just do it. Spend the money and get one you like too.
It's a few dollars more for the 5-point, but and I will also say get one with a chest buckle, because it helps keep the straps on your shoulders where they're comfortable and where they're supposed to be. But that 5th point will keep it down and pulled in good. They call it the submarine belt that goes between your legs. But that will help keep the belt right where it needs to be. And I suggest a 3-inch wide web on it and pads.
Yeah, you're going to want to spread that stress out as much as possible, and the pads definitely make a big difference. Again, racing for an hour when you're being thrown around quite a bit because you're trying to make good lap times.
Yeah.
So the G-forces are definitely a little more extreme than just tooling around the backyard or going for a trail ride with some friends. You want to be held in place firmly, but you definitely want to have some padding, and you want to have that stress spread out, like you said, the wider 3-inch wide stuff. Otherwise, it's just going to dig into you the whole race.
Yep. I think our biggest problem, I'll say it because I made the purchase and I made the call on it, tires. That was the thing that haunted us all year, was we just got the wrong tires. And I've gone through it before, but I'll say it again. The tires we chose, I chose because we were looking at it as the majority of the season is in summer through June, July, August, and September, where we normally traditionally have dry weather around here. So we picked a tire that was good in the dry. We ended up having a very wet summer, and it just haunted us.
Yeah, those tires would have been great if it was drier or if we were out on more rocky surfaces. But in the mud, they were hopeless.
Yeah. So I would say pick a tire that's going to do well throughout the whole year. Don't hedge your bets on it's going to be dry in the middle, so I'm going to pick something that's fast in the dry. So that
also, we bought one that it's what, 8-ply?
Is an 8-ply tire. Is very hard, very heavy.
And granted, it did live up to expectations. We didn't have any punctures, we didn't have any damage, but I think that hurt us more than it helped us. And honestly, I saw a lot of UTVs finish races with a tire coming off the rim, but they still finished, it wasn't super common to lose tires.
Yeah. It happened on a couple races where there were some rocks, but our tires survived, but that's the one that I feel haunted us and gave us the most problems throughout the year.
And really, if you're buying any kind of decent name brand tire, if you're losing multiple tires per race, pardon me, you probably need to adjust your driving style more than anything.
Yeah, a lot of the race and a lot of guys that lose tires, it's to pick your line better, know where to place your tires more than just ram through it.
If it's rocky, you got to put the treads on the rocks. You can't put the sidewall on the rocks, that kind of stuff.
So, I will say, and this goes not for just UTVs. I could not tell you how many people on dirt bikes, and I would say it's more important on dirt bikes, but even quads and UTVs, get a new set of tires at the start of the race season. Don't say, oh, these have plenty of tread. I've been sitting in my garage for 3 years. They are now hard. They don't flex. They don't bite like they used to. New set of tires, and you'll be good, but you're going to regret it if you don't. So that's...
And along those lines, don't go... Honestly, none of the racers, at least in our area, that are winning have particularly wide tires. In fact, they almost look comically small, and both width and diameter-wise. Most racers were not going up in diameter. If anything, they might have gone down a little bit, and they definitely weren't going wider than stock. And also... we've talked about this a little bit before. If your machine is stock, you're going to want to narrow it up some. If you've widened your machine for any reason, you're going to really want to narrow it up some. Now, if you're out, again, these are recommendations kind of specific to racing in the Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, where there's woods and it's cross-country style. If you live out west, or you're dunes racing or doing something like that, go wide, go fat. If you don't have any width restrictions, that's fine. But if you're going to be in any kind of tight quarters, width on the machine is not your friend at all.
Yep. That bit us. We were the widest in our class and about equally as wide as several of the heavy machines.
Yeah.
At 60 inches wide. And 60 is not all that wide when you talk about UTVs anymore.
But when parts of the trail are 58 inches wide...
Yeah, it gets to be a problem. Tires, harnesses. I suggest making sure you have some decent bumpers on it. Race machines, a lot of them will look good from 20 feet and shined up, but man, you use the bumpers way more than you would think. You use them to let people know you're there. We've had to. Okay, we are knocking this tree over or knocking through this brush to get through here, and it's one of those things that you're gonna use them. Trust me, some good stout bumpers.
And there's other equipment guides you can find out there online. There's a lot of people talking about what they're using for racing, but mentally, here's a few things you may want to be prepared for. First of all, a lot of it is slow down and go faster. Your brain's going to be screaming you're in a race. You need to go as fast as you possibly can at all times. But in tight technical sections of the track, you really need to slow down just a little bit and assess what's going on before you pick a line or make a move. Because let's face it, if there's somebody behind you and you're in a tight section that you're trying to decide how to get through, they can't get through either. They're stuck behind you. So you might as well take a second and make sure that you're putting your tires where you want to be and that you're picking the smart line. If they happen to get around you, you can always chase them back down. It's not the end of the world. And if they get impatient and pick a poor line, then they're just going to get themselves stuck and then you're wide open to go. So kind of keep your wits about you. And especially if you're a brand new racer and you've never taken your UTV out at high speed, in the woods in a race situation like that, take your time the first 2 laps. Remember, the whole point of this is to have fun. Nobody's making any money on this deal. Even if you're a pro, you're losing money every year. You can't make enough. Even if you finished first place every race, you cannot make enough to break even on the sport.
Yep.
At least not again, we race in a pretty decent sized series. Now, maybe if you're in a national level series and you've got sponsors and yada, 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 but you already know all this stuff. This is for the amateur, green racer.
Yeah.
Just take your time. Don't tear up your machine by going in full bore and breaking it a half a lap in. We've done that a couple times ourselves, and it's no fun sitting there watching everyone else go by. It is fun to race. It is fun to ride. And if you can go slower and do that, then you're way better off than just sitting there.
Yep, fully agree. So along with the bumpers, I'm just going to throw it in as whole protection. Like Doug said, skid plates, A-arm guards, rock sliders or tree kickers, depending what you call them. You're just going to want something to protect the whole machine because you're going to bounce off of things. You're going to beat the machine up. And that kind of leads into my next point of be prepared. Don't love the machine too much. I mean, you're going to beat it up. You're going to hit trees. You're going to have people hit you where they just couldn't get stopped and getting
You're going to
upset.
have people bump you when you're in the way and they want to get around you.
Yeah, it's going to happen. So don't be in love with the machine where you sit up all night polishing it and everything else. Know that it's a race machine. That's something that mentally you have to prepare yourself for that too.
And maybe that sways your decision if you're planning on going racing. If you're thinking about going and buying a brand new machine and going racing, maybe you want to look a year or two old, one that's, had a few mishaps along the way. I mean, fixable and serviceable, but maybe isn't the prettiest thing out there. It's got, cracked fenders or something like that because it's been brushed into stuff. Maybe that's your race baby. As long as it's mechanically sound and you can work on it, it's going to be a really bitter pill if you go out there with $25,000 and a brand new X3 and something bad happens because it's racing. It will. It happens to the pros. That happens to everybody. You get sideways and put that thing in a tree.
Yeah, you're going to hate yourself for it. So let's throw in there a few more things. What else for going racing?
Most races, you're not going to need lights. So heavy investment in light bars or superpower projector lamp headlights or something like that it's not going to buy you anything. If you know there's going to be a night race, you can always account for that, but I wouldn't go gonzo with extra lighting.
That was kind of going to be one of my next things. I won't say take your headlights out. Some people did. We did not. We had a bumper that kind of protected our headlights, so we were okay, and we didn't knock any of them out. But take off the unessential things. I mean, if you have a stereo, take it out. If you have light bars, take it off. I mean, I looked at it this way when we started doing it, and I didn't have a stereo in, but I had a light bar, and I had a few other things. When the inevitable happens and it crashes, or we rub up against a tree that is just one more part that can break, that doesn't need to be on there, that I'm not going to use, and it's just extra weight. So just it's like we had really wide fender flares that went out over the wheels, and I absolutely knew if I didn't take those off, I was ripping every one of them off on a tree. It was going to happen.
And we would have.
So I took every one of them off, threw them up on a shelf in my garage, and they're in great shape. And if I want to put them back on, not a big deal. I didn't tear them up. I didn't tear up $500 worth of fender flares. So I think that kind of covers most of the machine prep.
Yeah.
Like what you need to start looking at before you start thinking about racing.
And people will argue with us on this one because some people don't have these and swear they don't need them. But we've talked about CVT temp monitoring. In fact, we talked about it back in episode 18.
Yep.
Just get one. They're not expensive, but it will let you know where your belt is at. And there may be a point in the race where you need to back off a little bit and run a little bit looser so you don't snap that belt. Because again, you're better off finishing fourth and getting a DNF.
Yeah. So I want to move on to, with race prep, a little bit more into the before each race.
Yeah.
I know
maintenance.
Doug didn't get to do a whole lot of this because he was in the process of trying to sell a house and move down here.
Yeah, I used to live, it was a good 3 to 3.5 hours depending on traffic for here. So
he didn't get to do a whole lot of the race prep. He just kind of showed up and rode in the buggy, and that was his participation.
Yep.
But anyway, and Steve and I talked about this. He's a little more disciplined about it than I am even, but before every race, I would go around and check every suspension bolt, make sure that they were all tight, all my bushings were tight in all of the suspension, all my bearings were good. I would check all the fluids, both front and rear diffs, coolant, and engine oil, and I would grease all the suspension points also.
how often were you changing the oil?
I would change the oil about every 3 races.
Okay.
That may seem a little excessive. We only run about an hour and a half, but you are running full bore an hour and a half.
And oil's cheap. We're not talking about a 16-quart diesel change here.
Yeah. A few quarts and you're good. So, but yeah, I change the oil regularly. Air filter, I put a brand new one on, and I put one that is a cleanable one. I put that on at the beginning of the season, and I washed it with they have a wash solution, and re-oiled it before every race. It's cheap insurance and cheap performance. It's performance if it was stopped up. I mean, that you're losing, that you're leaving back in the garage. I did that. I just generally went completely over the buggy. About every 2 races, I would pull the clutches apart and blow them out, clean everything out. I didn't do it every race. It's not running that long. Normally during an oil change, I'd pull it apart and do that. Now, Steve logs when he installs a part, how many miles,
I liked that actually, because it does give you a quick record of, did that last as long as it should have? Because it gets fuzzy when you do a bunch of stuff to your machine.
Right.
And for warranty purposes and everything else, it is nice to have that record of, oh, that's when I did that. I should probably look at that again because it's been longer than I thought.
Right. And I agree. That's a good thing to do. I'm just not that disciplined normally with it. And I generally would start my pre-check, we'll call it pre-race weekend check. I'd start it on Monday and check everything. And that way, if I really did have a problem, I could get parts either overnighted or quick shipped to me, and maybe hopefully get them by Wednesday, Thursday, get them slapped on and get whatever the problem was resolved. And that kind of goes into my next thing. We do all this prep, we check all the fluids and everything else, but for a normal trail ride, if you're like, my tie rod, that's one of the other things. I check tie rod. I lump that in with suspension. Haha. No, we didn't go out with any bent ones. But if you have a loose tie rod end, or one of your bushings is slightly wobbly, or you got a bearing that's starting to go on it, a wheel bearing, if you were going just out trail riding, you're like, oh yeah, that'll survive another ride or two. It'll be fine. Racing, it will not survive, because you're not thinking, I'll just slow down a little bit and place it a little better. It just won't survive. It'll give out at the worst time.
No, it is the exact example of Murphy's Law, which most people oversimplify. What it really, Murphy's Law was, if you engineer something with a way to fail, it'll fail. Like if there's a problem, but it probably won't happen and you leave it alone, it will fail. That's what Murphy's Law actually says.
Yeah.
And that's how it is with this. If you notice a deficiency and you think it'll probably be okay, it won't be okay.
No, it won't. And that's one of those things that, so you go out there and what you thought would survive, and we'll say a tie rod end is a little loose, and you think, oh, it'll survive. You want to bet your whole race weekend, all your travel time and money that you've spent, and your race fees to get in to the gate, and your entry fees to put the machine up on the line and everything else. You want to bet that on a $30 tie rod end?
Yeah, it's not worth it.
You start thinking about it that way, and it's like it's not worth betting my $1,000 weekend, because that's a lot of times that's what it ended up costing us to race, is about $1,000 a weekend, because by the time you travel and you may take a day off work and whatever else, and the fuel and the entry fees, $1,000 you're betting on a $30 part. Why not just order the $30 part that you're going to have to order next week anyway?
And that kind of dovetails into one of my last 2 points I want to make was don't kid yourself about the expense. If you've got a spouse involved in this, don't kid them about the expense. Oh, it's going to be cheap. I've already got the machine. The rest will work itself out. It's going to cost you some money. It's a ton of fun. And there's going to be people there that are going to help you out if something goes wrong. And it's going to be a great experience. But don't kid yourself about what it's going to cost you to do it.
Yeah. Somebody asked a question. Oh, I don't think it was it was one of the Facebook groups I'm a member of. I said, what does it take to go racing? Everybody who raced answered, deep pockets. I mean,
yeah. Well, then the old racing adage of if you want to make $1 million racing, start with 10 million.
Yeah. And in all seriousness, I'll put it this way. Don't count the machine. Don't count any of your pre-prep or anything else. You better expect to spend at least $10,000 throughout that year racing, minimum.
Yeah. If you add all the soft costs that sometimes you kind of brush to the side of your mind, I mean, even just going racing, unless you're packing your lunches and stuff like that, you're going to be eating food there. That costs money, especially if you got your whole family with you. I mean, it all adds up.
Right. And I would say realistically, okay, let's say you did it like Doug and I did it, where you go and you're camping there and you're going to race, and you generally have a couple-hour drive to get there, give or take. I would say you'll probably end up closer to $15,000 in just the overall expense of it, because you have more oil changes on your truck and your hauling camper and your machine maintenance and your race fees to get your machine to the line and get, into the place and everything else. It just adds up, and you're going to wreck it, or someone's going to hit you. You're going to bend and break parts. And I mean, it wasn't uncommon where when we had a bad weekend, there's, $500 in parts, and you're going to spend 2 or 3 days putting it back together, or whatever it is, or 2 or 3 evenings. I mean,
my little adventure on the last race where I basically ripped the rear wheel off and busted up one of the rock sliders and the rear bumper. We got out cheap because we bought used parts from a parted out machine, and it was $450, but that didn't count the rock slider and some other stuff that were getting replaced by sponsors. So, I mean, if you bought all new parts and replaced everything I broke,
$1,500, $2,000
easily. Yeah, I was going to say probably $2,000.
Yeah. So, and it's not hard to rip a wheel off. It happened several times out there.
Not to us.
Not to us, but no, it did happen. It happened to several guys out there. So, like, you just know going in. I mean, and if it's something that you're not prepared for, we're trying to prepare you. I couldn't tell you how many people started the season and just 2-3 races in gave up, and a lot of them, that they still came or whatever because they enjoyed watching the racing. They said it was just too expensive. They couldn't afford it.
And so we're not trying to scare anybody off. We just want you to have a very good idea of what you're going into, what you're getting into, and it is great. It is a ton of fun. We're not going to be racing much this year, not just because of the financial issues, but really we've just got too much on our plate. We don't have enough time to make every race, put together a full season with everything else we've got going on with Eminent Performance. But, again, we just want to make sure that you mentally know what you're getting into. And in a sense, this is a team sport because a lot of you guys are married. You've got a spouse involved. It makes for a very quiet, lonely evening when she finds out how much money is being spent versus what you kind of mentally prepared her for.
Yeah.
If that number ends up being 3 or 4 times what she was thinking it was going to be, that's a cause for marital strife that nobody needs. So just be honest with yourself, be honest with your spouse, make sure it's something you really want to do and you guys are committed to, and you're going to have a ton of fun doing it.
Oh, yeah. It's fun.
It's just expensive fun.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, think about it this way. So say you have 2 races in a month, which isn't uncommon, and you have real problems in both of those races, and you spend $2,000, and we'll say you didn't have real bad problems. You bent a tie rod and blew a tire or something in each of those, and plus your race fees and everything else. You've just spent $4,000 that month on racing alone, and you didn't gain any points probably because it put you out of the race. And, explain that one to the wife and see how thrilled she is on that. So
we'll leave it there. We've depressed
prepared.
you enough.
I'm sorry.
No.
So anyway.
And again, it all comes down to a ton of different factors, but just be ready for what you're going to get into. And if you have a slightly less traumatic experience than what we're making it out to be, good on you. But I think a lot of people are somewhat unrealistic about what it takes to do a season mentally, physically, and emotionally and financially. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but it is a ton of fun. One thing I did want to get to here before we run out of time, because man, it's going quick.
We talk a lot.
We do talk a lot. I like Doug Walters' question here. We got a couple others from Ethan Perry and Shane Trevesos. I'm not sure. I probably butchered your name, and I'm sorry. But Doug Walter, I want to get to his thing here. He says, so with all the better tech involved in off-road, the price of an ATV/UTV is going up. Do you think there's a market for a base or simple model that has a strong engine tranny combo to keep the cost down? He gives the example of the Textron Altera 700 VLX. I mean, I think there always is a market for stuff like that. How much of one?
I'm gonna say I think the market is as great as ever for the base models. And here's my thing. How many people have been riding ATVs for forever? That's what they rode. And then they want to get into a UTV. Well, the price, just like base model to base model, double it from an ATV to get a UTV.
Oh, yeah, easily.
And a lot of those guys, who've never either been in one or have very limited time in one, you're not going to convince them that they need to spend $20,000, but to go from their, $7,000 quad, a 4-wheel drive, nice one, to a $12,000 side-by-side, that's a jump they can take.
Okay, but what are you going to strip off? Let's take the CF Moto, for example.
Right.
It's one of the lowest priced 800s you can get on the market right now.
Correct.
What are you going to do to make that lower priced?
Oh, no, I don't think he was going for making them lower price. I don't think that was necessarily Doug's question in it. I think Doug was saying, is there a market for those lower priced ones, or is just the whole general market, all of the UTV prices are going to go up, and the low priced ones like the CF Moto will just go away?
But his question was, do you think there's a market for a base or simple model that has a strong engine tranny combo to keep the cost down? Those already exist in the market, I guess, is what I'm driving at.
Right, and I get that, and I think there's a great market for them. I'm just saying there's a great market for them because there's always new people coming in.
Yeah.
I
took it as he was kind of, maybe I took the question wrong. I was taking it as he doesn't really think that exists right now.
Oh, okay. I was taking it.
We'll cover it from all angles, and we can't be wrong.
Yay! I'll take it from my angle. You take it from yours. So I'm going to say yes, that there is a good market for them, and there probably always will be, because there's people always going to be new to the UTV market and not wanting to go pitch $25,000 at one, and they're okay spending 12 or 13 on one. As far as I'll kind of answer your side of it. Is there something that does fill that market? I think the CF Moto does. I think even like you
can still get a cheap Razor.
You can, but you have to get an older used one. I mean, to stay down in that price point.
Yeah. And I think the market kind of typically dictates that if you want to spend more money to get a bigger engine, you are more than willing to pay for extra goodies.
Right.
So I don't think there's a market, if this is what you're driving at, Doug, for 1,000 turbo that's literally just like 4 wheels and a frame and a motor. I mean,
yeah,
they already kind of have option packages anyways. Like, you don't have to get the
fully loaded
Razor with the what's it called, the suspension package.
Oh, the Dynamax.
The Dynamax.
Dynamics.
The dynamic suspension on it.
Dynamax, yeah.
That's an adder. But in general, when people are stepping up from their lower end machine to one with more horsepower, bigger motor, they want the extra amenities. They're not willing to buy one that's just stripped down with a bigger motor. And the market's kind of proved that out, I think.
Yeah, I'll agree. I don't think you're going to find like the 1000 turbo with the nice suspension is it. But I mean, I don't think you're going to find a stripped down fast model. You just don't anymore.
Because it's not just engine and transmission. You don't want 1000 turbo with a really crappy suspension and really weak A-arms and terrible tie rods. Like it won't make it off the showroom floor. I mean, you have to beef certain things up, and that in turn costs money.
So I hope we answered that question. We kind of went at it from both directions.
Yeah,
and I don't know how he wanted us or how he meant to phrase that. I took it one way and you took it another.
I'm going to guess that one of those covered it.
Yay, we've done it.
But yeah, I think honestly the Chinese market is going to somewhat dominate that lower cost market.
Yeah, and actually they build a good machine for the price point. There are some...
Well, we were looking at it the other day where, again, I keep bringing up my failure on that last race. I ripped the rear wheel off. I broke the knuckle. I pulled the axle out of the diff. The A-arms are fine.
Yeah.
Those things are made out of...
unobtainium.
Yeah, they're just the strongest thing ever. We didn't bend the frame. We didn't bend an A-arm. We just broke soft parts off.
Yep. So, yeah... I think the CF Moto fits it. There are some things that I think CF Moto could do a little better, but I could say that probably about every brand.
Yeah, and at some point you got to hit a price point. So
it is what it is. I mean, I don't think it's a bad machine. I don't regret buying the machine.
It's put up with a ton of abuse and still keeps coming back for more. I mean, for what we've done to that poor thing, I really can't fault it.
And I will say that machine is probably... I'll go out on a limb here and say it is the most upgraded CF Moto probably on the planet. I mean, the amount of things that I've done to it at this point to just keep addressing our wrecking it and weak links.
There are no weak links really anymore.
No, I mean, the thing is bulletproof. I've got a heavy-duty rack in it, heavy-duty tie rods, the A-arms you can't kill if you dropped a nuke on them.
We tried.
It's the CVT is blowered and monitored, and I mean clutching done to it, and it's got all its bells and whistles that you could really do to one. So, but yeah, I mean, so you can make them more expensive. You can get all the things on them that the more expensive machines have. You're just going to spend the money after the fact, and for some people that's a more palatable way to do it.
Yeah.
So,
well, there you go. I was looking at. We've got a ton of topics. We got so much stuff in here we're not even going to get to tonight, which means we've got plenty of stuff for episodes 20 through 25. Hey, we're actually coming up on the 1/3 mark of our goal. What do we say, 30 episodes?
I have no idea. I don't remember. We'll have to go back and listen.
I think we said 30, which seems like a really, really lame goal now because we've probably got enough stuff on this sheet to get there.
Oh, yeah. We probably have that much as of right now. So,
well, and we kind of talked originally about doing it monthly and maybe bi-monthly. And now that we're doing it weekly, I think we're just rolling through them a lot faster than we thought we would.
Yeah. So
it's been fun.
Yeah. I really enjoy chatting with you guys who are listening, who hit me up on Facebook and send a message to Eminent Performance. I mean, Steve sent me a message, and Doug gets to read them kind of after the fact. Usually he reads through the conversations that I have with people kind of in a sick voyeuristic way. But
well, here's the deal. I'm handling other parts of the business so that you can interface with people who know about machines and you can build stuff. I'm doing all the behind the scenes work because let's face it, you know way, way more about the intricate parts of the machines than I do. I have a lot of good general knowledge about not just these, but just mechanics in general. You know, like specific weird things about them that people shouldn't know that didn't design them in the first place.
I had a guy message me the other day. He goes, are the oil filters, was it the oil filters he was asking about? I don't know. Are the oil filters the same on this machine and this machine? Yes, I can tell you they are.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. So I'm just letting you handle
This
a lot
is
of
the thread pitch on the lug nuts for this machine and this machine.
Yeah.
It's stupid what I know.
But see, that's why I let you handle it. There's no point in me butting in and guessing when you already know. So we're playing to our strengths.
Yeah. But what I was going at, I enjoyed chatting with you guys, and Steve was telling me that how much he enjoys the podcasts again and that he's listening through them all. And he said we actually had him just rolling, laughing at the stupid things with Chad last one where I said that I was grabbing the electrical wires.
It's explained so much about you that I didn't already know.
Oh, it's just me. I'm like, I do things because I'm like, well, I've never done it before. I'm going to try something. Doesn't mean it's smart, but I'm doing it. I'm sorry I had to move that.
I'm sorry you had to move that too. Yes, that is you though.
It's just me. It's how I do things. It's like, I don't know, a couple months ago, I'm like, I don't have time to go get a haircut. I'll cut my own hair. I mean, it came out okay.
That didn't send you home from work.
Nope. Still allowed out in public. But then again, I work in IT. I'm probably one of the more presentable folk there.
Honestly, though, we laugh about it, but there's an element of that I think is lacking from today's society of, I don't know, so I'm not going to try it.
Yeah, and I am the complete opposite of that.
I've run into a lot of people who why don't you just do X, Y, and Z then? Well, I've never done it before. Okay, well, figure it out. I mean, if it totally blows up and doesn't work, you can correct, or you can find somebody, okay, I'm just really not good at this. I'll find somebody else to do it. But how do you know till you try?
Right. You might be really good at it.
How do you develop skills until you try? I mean, I've found things that I had no idea I'd be good at, but I was willing to give it a whirl, and turns out I had a knack for it.
Honestly, my whole family is like me, and that's kind of why we have the stupid adventures that we do as a family, like my dad and my brother.
Because sane people say why, and you guys say why not?
It's like I got a call from my dad several years ago, and this is literally how the phone conversation went. It's my dad calling on my cell phone. I go, hello. He goes, hey, what are you up to? I go, well, I'm at work, so I'm working. And he goes, you want to go in halves on a crane? And didn't even question him. Yeah, sure, why not?
The backstory to that is you heard about the jet boat incident from a couple shows ago. That pond that they have on the property here was starting to silt up and fill in. So normal people would call in a construction company with heavy equipment to dredge it. The shoemakers buy a crane and do it themselves.
And a bulldozer. That's just how we are. It's like, well, I could pay someone to do it, or I could do it. And I just got to buy the
And then at the end of it,
equipment.
I have a crane.
I have a crane. So yeah, we bought a 60-foot dredge crane.
Well, speaking of adventures, we've got a few things on the list, and what we need to do is get your wife to add things to this
she'll
list.
add all kinds of things to the stupid things with Chad list. Now, we did talk about last one after the show, the one that we have to talk about that has to do with our friend Kevin. Do you remember that?
I'm spacing now.
And his wedding.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah, and I didn't even think about it until, I don't know, somebody said something about our friend Kevin. So
we talked about our mutual friend Kevin, who is the one that kind of reunited Chad and I, but oh man, that's depressingly long ago now, like 17 years.
Yeah.
Something like that.
We're old.
Been a while.
Still not grown up, just old.
I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. That's why I'm trying new things like podcasting. Who knows?
Maybe that'll stick. Throw something else at the wall quick.
I could make tens of dollars doing this.
We haven't made a dime doing this.
We're never going to.
It's costing us money.
We're never going to. We're doing it because it's fun. And honestly, like you said, it's great. It's been great interacting with people.
Oh, yeah.
That's been the very best part of this. So please keep doing that. But anyways, coming back to Kevin, Kevin got married to my sister at one point, which there's a whole nother story there we won't get into today. That would be stupid stuff with Kevin. But anyways, I'll let you tell the story because you're the one who did it. So
I have known Kevin since we were in middle school, probably. I mean, how old are you when you're in middle school?
12, 13.
Okay. How old am I now? I don't know.
You're closing on 38.
Okay. Yeah, I've known him a long time. So, like, long time.
25 years.
Yeah, roughly. I'm not doing math tonight. My head hurts. Don't want to do math. I was younger then. I'm older now. That's all we need to know. So anyway, I've known Kevin for a long time. I had after high school, though, I moved about 3.5 hours south of where Doug and Kevin both lived. So I had met Kevin's fiance, but I get, the wedding invitation, and I believe I was married at that time, or engaged, whatever. It was around that time. My wife will fill me in on which one I'm correct on later and yell at me for not being correct on the other. So I get the invitation, and it says, you are cordially invited to Kevin's wedding and blah, blah, blah. It is at this address, and it is at this time. Like, check, hang it on the refrigerator. Wife, remind me when I'm supposed to drive to Michigan to go to this wedding. Don't think about it anymore. Whatever. You, wife, you handle gift things, and I'm just going to make my appearance. Yay.
Now, the key word in the story is Michigan.
So, there's this thing called daylight savings time, which Indiana did not participate in at the time.
When did we switch over? Was it about a decade ago?
Yeah, about 10 years ago.
But Indiana was one of only 2 states that did not observe daylight savings time. We just did not change, but Michigan did.
So, anyway.
So if you grow up in northern Indiana or southern Michigan,
Yep.
Whenever somebody announces a time for something that could be in one state or the other, you would always ask, is that Indiana or Michigan time? That was a very, very common phrase. Everyone asked that. Oh, 2 o'clock, is that Indiana or Michigan time?
Yeah, because if you were doing something on either side, okay, let's make up a story that we're going to, meet at 2 o'clock to go to, Silver Lake Dunes, or to leave to go to Silver Lake Dunes. Are we leaving at 2 o'clock Indiana time or Michigan time? So You guys probably see where this is going, but let's just finish the story out. So wife and I hop in the car, drive, I don't know, what was it? It's like 4.5 hours north from here.
Yeah, it's a good drive.
It's a fair amount. Get out of the car, walk up. I didn't think anything of it. I am probably not the most observant human that ever roamed the planet. And about the time that we turned the corner, because the wedding was at a house, we turned the corner, and here come Kevin and his new bride walking down the aisle towards us.
They're walking down the wrong way.
We missed the wedding entirely because I didn't think Indiana or Michigan time. My wife never thought about it because she wasn't from that area. It never occurred to her to ask because it wasn't ever a question asked. And it wasn't specified on the invitation. That's my defense. And it was horrible. Like, they're walking back, and the look on Kevin's face when he saw me turn the corner, and I probably had this like bewildered, like, what are you walking back for look? I don't know if I cocked my head like a dog in question.
Did you guys start early?
Missed the whole wedding and walked right in as they're walking out. And I'm like, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh crap, I knew what I've done.
It would have been so much better if you were the best man or something.
Yep. Hey, I'm here. So that's probably not the most hilarious one to many people, but your wives will enjoy that. And
we're a family-oriented program here. We're trying to cater to everyone.
And we should tell them about the Kill the Pope game.
Oh, yeah. That's a great game. So, actually, that's perfect. We're getting towards the end of the podcast. This will tie it all the way back to the beginning of the podcast where we talked about how expensive racing is.
Okay. So I came up with this, we'll call it a game, quote unquote, air quotes for those of you listening only. It's called Kill the Pope. So if you're going to buy something, let's say you're going to buy
a new UTV.
So you got to tell your wife about this one, right? I mean, she's going to notice.
She's going to notice an $18,000 hole in the checking account.
Right. So you don't start out saying, I need to spend $18,000, we'll say, on a new UTV. You start out saying, I'm going to buy a Ferrari for $250,000.
Or a new F-150 Platinum that's $70,000.
For $100,000 or whatever. And then you get them all worked up. I know this sounds like a horrible idea. You get them all worked up about it. And just keep saying, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I've already gone and looked at it. I've got all the financing squared away. Payments are only going to be $6,000 a month or whatever, Just get them all wound up. And then I was just only teasing. I was actually going to go buy the new UTV. It's only $18,000. it's the Kill the Pope game. If you're going to like do something really bad, start with the extreme of how bad it could be.
And that's killing the Pope. That's
Yeah.
the worst thing you could do.
The worst thing you could possibly do is go kill the Pope. So if you're like, oh, I'm going to kill the Pope, everybody's like, no, not the Pope. And it's like, oh, I'm only going to, kick a puppy. Well, that's not near as bad.
By comparison, you're now a saint.
Yes, look at how great you are. You're only kicking puppies instead of killing the Pope. So this sounds like a horrible idea, but I've done this many times. And Doug has used it, I think. I know several people of my friends have used it. It works. It's strange, but it works. So, yes, Fuzzy, when we informed him on what killing the Pope was, I think he has used it a few times.
He definitely has.
Don't wear the Kill the Pope game out because...
This is not a weekly activity.
No, this is for big things. So, yeah.
Save it. Save it for special things.
Yep. It'll work. So we've done that. We still have to do trivia with you, though.
Let's do it.
So, are you ready?
Are some easy and some hard?
Maybe. What's my phone alerting me about?
You say that every time, so
I know.
I stole your thunder.
You did.
I preempted you.
I looked, and I was going to do one that was all classic rock trivia. I could not bring myself to do it. None of them were any good. They all sucked. I was like, no.
Yeah, because honestly, I know weirder stuff than most trivia things do.
Yeah, well, I knew you'd get them all, and it's not a matter of trying to stump you. It's a matter of getting interesting things, and it's like,
I'm having fun with it, man.
Who was the leader of whatever?
Speaking of trivia, was it? I'm getting all the episodes mixed up. Maybe it was 1 or 2 ago. The one with the horse on the standing on the rear
that was
legs?
like 2 or 3 ago.
So
Your mom, I saw that.
Yes, my mom. See, this is where I get the trivia crap from because she puts me to shame. So remember I asked you, what does it mean if the horse is on 3 legs? It means the person was injured in battle but survived.
Yeah. Doug's mom called me out on it and came to her son's defense and was like, you should let Chad give you a lifeline. You could have called me and I would have got it. And
Did
whatever.
you see my response?
Yes, he just likes to watch me squirm. It's true. I'm sorry.
I'm having fun and I'm learning, which if anybody knows me, I love to learn. I love to read. I read about a bunch of stuff today that has no practical application and there's no reason I should know it other than it was just interesting. So I'm okay with that.
So, okay, you ready for your trivia?
Bring it.
All right. What pop star had 81 gold records to polish by 1997?
Pop star?
Yep. You know who he is.
Michael Jackson?
Nope. Paul McCartney.
I was going to say, yeah, he wasn't around long enough at that point to do that.
Yeah.
He's not, I wouldn't call Paul McCartney a pop star.
Well,
he's popular, but he's a rock star.
No. Nah.
The Beatles were rock and roll. Paul McCartney and the Wings were rock and roll. I wouldn't call any of that pop music.
I'm going to call it pop.
Okay, well, that was a miscommunication there. I think of pop music like Michael Jackson or Justin Timberlake or, any of those people.
Okay. You still don't get a point for it. No imaginary internet points for you.
Okay, fine.
What does the initials REM stand for with regards to dream patterns?
Rapid eye movement.
Very good. Yeah. I had no idea. I've heard of REM sleep many, many, many times.
Random emotional manipulation.
Only if you're married. That one struck me as funny also. It's sad how quick my mind goes to things like this. Moving on, quickly.
I might have to do some audio editing.
Quick, kill the Pope. Oh, what TV star did 500,000 people show up to watch sing at the Berlin Wall?
TV star?
Yes.
No idea. I didn't know anybody sang at the Berlin Wall.
David Hasselhoff.
What?
Yeah. Over in Germany, he's a big hit singing.
Oh, that's right. He is. I'd forgotten about that.
It's not good, but whatever.
500,000 people.
500,000 people showed up to watch him sing at the Berlin Wall. I saw a thing on that the other day.
That just shows how beat down people were from communism.
David Hasselhoff is the greatest. Okay. Number 4. Whose ghost appears in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar? You got to be all classical and stuff on it.
Oh man, I know this too. It left me. It's like when somebody asks you for your spouse's name and you're like, oh yeah, it's so and so.
Don't say the wrong name in that scenario.
Yeah, no kidding. I can't think of it. I know it. As soon as I hear it, I'm going to know it.
Caesar's ghost.
Really?
Yeah, that's what it says.
I was thinking it was another character. Okay, so I didn't know it. Never mind.
Ignore. Number 5. In 1970, cult ringleader and convicted killer Charles Manson recorded an album of his first songs. What was the title? See, you with your music knowledge here, you should know this.
No, I don't get into Manson music. I'm just going to pass.
You're not going to guess?
Music to murder people by?
No, it was called Lie.
Like L-I-E or L-Y-E?
L-I-E.
Oh, I thought maybe like lie, like dissolving bodies or something.
Your mind went there quick.
It's Charles Manson. His second album was Muddy Shovel.
Mud Shovel. That was a Stain song.
Yes, it was.
So, anyway, moving on. We derailed quickly from that.
It doesn't take much.
Look, shiny things.
Squirrel.
Number 6. In which 1968 film did Barbra Streisand play the role of Fanny Bryce?
I don't know.
I have never even heard of this. Funny Girl. I don't know. Whatever.
Wow. Yeah, I got nothing.
I'm sure this movie was awesome. This next one, number 7. Anyway, in 1984, actor Jeff Bridges played the character called Starman. What was the film?
Starman.
Yes. Have you ever seen that?
It's terrible.
Is it? I have not, and now I want to see how terrible it is.
I don't know why, but in the whole movie, he talks kind of like this. I guess it's because he's from outer space, but
he sounds more handicapped.
Yeah, he does. He sounds. Yeah, it's not good. I can't remember if I made it through the whole movie because I think at one point I just decided I'm never going to get this part of my life back. I'm spending currency I can't earn back.
All right, number 8. Which member of the Monkees pop group? See, there's a lot of music stuff in here for you.
Yeah, weird stuff.
Yeah,
Charles Manson.
Whatever. Don't call me Charles Manson. Which member of the Monkees pop group was a former apprentice jockey?
Davy Jones.
Yes, he was. That almost had to be. He was a short dude.
He was a very slight build.
He was midget-esque. I don't know if that's a real thing. What song contains the line, Monday, count all the teeth in my head, Solomon bites?
Can I Google that?
No, I don't care.
Okay, no, I have no idea.
The Blue Tones, The Worm.
I've never heard of the Blue Tones.
Neither have I. That's why I really like that one. I was like,
The Worm.
This'll stump him.
Okay.
Him and all his music-y knowledge.
But on the way home, I've got Spotify. I've got unlimited, the premium package. I'm going to have to look that up on the way home. I'll let you know just how bad that is.
Okay, number 10, last one. Roman men had to swear on what to testify?
I don't know.
You know how like in courts they put their hand on the Bible.
On the Bible, yeah.
In the U.S. and that.
A bust of Julius Caesar.
Nope. They had to hold their testicles.
Like Spaceballs.
Yes. That was a great movie. Yes, sir. Yeah, they're covering. Yep, that was a great movie. So, yep. I don't know if that's where testify comes from, but I have no backing for that at all, but that would be very interesting to know.
But aren't you glad you didn't it was your own?
Yes.
Was
on
it like
the judge?
Was it like the bailiffs or something?
Yep.
I like that, though. I wonder if people would be more honest. Because let's face it, a lot of people, the Bible doesn't hold any water anymore.
Yeah.
But most guys are literally attached to their stuff.
To that. Yeah. We talked about being a family show. This is going away quickly.
Maybe we better end this one.
how quickly we have gone down the hill.
Well, we are definitely going to be back for number 20 because we can't let that be the end of this.
No, that was bad. I'm sorry.
But you can find us on the web at eminentperformance.com. You can find us on Facebook /Eminent Racing. You can find us on Instagram at Eminent Racing. You can find us on Twitter at Eminent Racing, but we're never on Twitter, so don't waste your time.
Well, we're on there, but we're not on there.
Yeah, we just took it because, you got to protect your name. And
sponsors.
Yeah, sponsors. Once again, we want to say a huge thank you to Watch Communications for hosting this mess. I'm guessing they don't listen to it because they're still hosting it.
Yep. Don't tell them.
Or maybe they have like a don't ask, don't tell about content policy. I don't know. But thank you so very much. And we are definitely happy to advertise your wares everywhere we go. TGM Off-Road, thanks a ton, Rob. We really appreciate you. UTV-doors.com. You were so instrumental in our racing season, and you're going to be instrumental this year in putting that wreck back together again.
Yay.
Yay.
And I still have not gotten information from our final sponsor that we know of so far. I have bugged him a few times.
We are just stringing you along because we know you're desperate to know who it is.
Fictitious sponsors.
That being said, we have openings. If you are interested in sponsoring, get in touch with us. We can tell you what we're looking for out of sponsorship and the kind of partnership we'd like to form with you. And as this podcast grows, you're getting free, very long format advertising with literally dozens of people at this point.
Maybe. Or
dozens.
Or like your mom's downloading it like 100 times.
Thanks, Mom. I appreciate it.
Thanks. My parents don't listen to it. My parents found out I was like actually doing a podcast, and my dad said something like, I heard he was. I don't know how to find it. And like he didn't even try after that. It was like, yeah, I'm sure he is. Whatever.
Did you start to tell him where it was? And he goes, I don't care.
No, it didn't get that far. I didn't even bother to tell him where it was. I'm like, he's not going to listen. No, I don't care.
In the meantime, everybody, keep the greasy side down, ride safe, and thanks for riding along with us.
Thanks, guys.
Screwing up. I'm tired of going down. I'm tired of myself. I'm tired of this town.
Deep